And good morrow. It's been a day or two since I've done one of these. I'd like to do my first in the morning, just as a warm-up for myself, continuing on from possibly the latest patch update, just to look for differences and chance to get awake, be ready for a later play session. Quite often in the morning, due to the nature of playing early, obviously I'm more focused on being under headphones. And so look, this session here, I've just gone through the console's audio tuner with the set of headphones I plan to use, and just reset, I guess, my profile. So specifically for these headphones. Now, the amp I'm currently using is a Sony PHA3, just as a test for this session. They're the standard sort of thing you can get off eBay. They were a flagship portable Class A amplifier probably 10-12 years ago, but they were arguably the best portable Class A amp on the market. Nowadays it'd be like a Woo Audio, so they probably tubes it or something, spending a few $1,000s for something portable. But the joy of these things that are 10-12 years old is that and there was two versions of the PHA3. One of them is designed as a desktop, doesn't actually have a battery in it, and I think that might have been in the UK. Around the rest of the world there is a version that runs off a battery. By now that battery should have bulged at a lot of PHA3s. The external chassis is kind of looking a bit weird because of the expansion of the cells in the battery. But the point of my story is that they should be a fairly cheap headphone amp to get. Personally, I got mine, I traded for like a JBL Bluetooth speaker. I've got a set of Sony Z7s, like one of the nicest over-ear headphones you can possibly ever get. I got that and the matching PHA3 amp, and it didn't cost me a couple $100 Australian. So that was years ago. So do I think you could probably jump on eBay and get one of the world's better portable Class A amps? Absolutely. You can use it in line. So in this case, what I'll be doing is I'll be taking the signal output from the headwear, I'll be feeding it into the line in on this portable amp, and then feeding it out to my headphones. Now the weakness of a PHA3 is that its balance mode is quite specific to a cable where it outputs a left to a 3.5mm and a right to a 3.5mm. So you kind of have to use two independent cables up to your drivers. And that's not the way balanced headphones work. And you can't feed a single-ended input to it and then output to balanced. And that's true of a lot of inline amps. So did it improve the soundstage on the ADD G1Xs, which are one of the better gaming headphones? Which, for a gaming headphone, you just need a neutral sound profile. You need the head-related transfer fields, HRTFs, to be able to play out on arguably a studio flatline set of headphones. And so you don't want exciting sound profiles or things that accentuate where your steps are. You know, most gaming headphones are kind of junk, really, for this sort of thing. You really want the best studio headphones you can find, arguably with a wide soundstage, arguably with front to back imaging, and arguably height imaging. And if you get all those things, playing Returnal under headphones is one of the most addictive, compelling things you can possibly do. Well, outside of Returnal, a game that gives you an advantage when playing it is Alien Rogue Incursion. So you just need the sound cues. Without the sound cues, I don't enjoy the game anywhere near as much as when I can hear when they're crawling around above me and behind me. And you need it. You can only point your motion detector in one direction, and you use your ears to hear 270 degrees elsewhere. And it's just situational awareness. You need the advantage. So look, as I say, I'm going to chuck them on now. I expect I'll be taking them off pretty quickly. The problem with a 12-year-old amp, certainly that you can get for practically peanuts or free, certainly in the case of the one I'm using, I noticed when I was running the tests, it was cutting in, cutting out. So one of two things, I'm either feeding too high a signal to it, and the input is just going, cut that. So lowering my the volume going into it might alleviate that. But my awareness is that the amp can be a little bit sick. Sometimes after half an hour of warm-up, I think it stabilises. But I just wanted to try one session in particular, give it a crack. Already, when I was using the audio tuner, I could just hear it was vastly more open. It just sounded like there was 10 more meters of sound stage for sounds to play out in. And so when you're playing a situational awareness shooter, being able to know exactly how far away they are just lowers the stress a bit. You know how long you've got to reload your gun and get in there again. Anyway, let's talk more play. As I say, halfway through the session, I'll probably yank the cable and probably switch back over to speakers because I'll just probably get bored of the sound cutting in, cutting out, and going, I need to be able to hear. But don't know until we try. All right. So, a little bit convoluted, the setup. Having tried quite a few different setups lately. Headphones, a lot of the active noise cancelling headphones have built-in amps, and if you feed line in to them, they're sort of using the built-in amp in them, and that's pretty good. That works. But yeah, I've just been running through, trying a lot of the open backs and some of the better closed backs for sound. But I mean, these are the ADG, the Audio-Technica ADG 1Xs with the open backs. We also had a closed back version of the same thing. These are a fairly old headphone now. They sold for quite a while. It's equivalent to the, I think it's the AD 700/900 series Audio-Technica. They're just proper audiophile headphones. They seem really good. Recommended. And at a budget. Otherwise, your AKG's K612 Pros you probably get for very, very cheap on the market. And they're fantastic. The problem with them is they've got a wired-in cable. It's a very long cable. If you're planning on treading on it a few times, you won't have the option of replacing just a cable. Alright, so... Alright, I'm hearing that. Possibly not as loud as I would like it. Nice thing about these headphones is there is a an inline rolly wheel, so you can actually change the volume on the fly. But I've got that set to full volume. I've got the PHA3 set to half volume, or 12 o'clock. But the subtlety of the sounds is just fantastic. Alright, so my slot 2 is a fresh game I started after the 5th patch came out, 1.05 patch. I think where I last left this will be the last video I did on the net, and I'm out of ammo. We'll see how this goes. Interesting. The game was actually allowing me to play with only one of my controllers up. Okay, so I got all clips, which is what I needed. I think I had plenty of, I've got one health stim. Yeah, the separation of the soundtrack from the immediate sound effects makes the soundtrack really background at this point. It's great. That's not a real surface. No, that is. Okay, good. Right up on my boundary. Just going to face this way. So usually before I will start a session, I'll get a sound pressure level meter out, find a reference test tone, set it to 60 dB so that the microphones on the recording device can average my voice above the soundtrack. It's easy to pick me out and everything's recorded quite naturally, quite native. So I guess with no room sounds coming through my speakers, you get the subtle sounds leaking from my headset. And I know it's fairly subtle because I was playing the other day with off a Bluetooth receiver, and there was a delay of about 300 milliseconds. So while I can hear them really clearly, really clearly. Yeah, this is without doubt the most accurate I've been able to pinpoint where everything is. Like really. Yeah, so both of those pinpoint to exactly where they were. Where's my links? Yeah, so definitely having the right sound setup is an advantage. There's just no doubt about that. Oh, wow, that thing is looking rather burnt. It hasn't cut out yet, which is kind of impressive. It's set at the 12 o'clock position on the amp. It's not loud enough. Now, these headphones aren't particularly sensitive. Most people would say they're pretty easy to drive, but yeah, by far the best audio immersion I've gotten out of it. Oh, wrong one. Shouldn't run. Don't run. Right up on my boundary. I understatement to say I'm always losing my bearings. Pardon me. Real understatement to say how immersive this game is, that it always keeps me. Here. Okay, so I can't hear any in this zone. Telling me to grab the hand torch, which is awesome. Okay, I could hear one, possibly an event there. I feel like that might have been triggered by the location of that. Holy shit. Oh, the precision of a better amp just expands everything. Yeah, I could hear that one before it turned up, specifically. Dude, why do you keep trying to walk in front of me? Far out. Whatever training I've got, you don't want to cross in front of weapons. They're weapons. They're live. Oh, alright, what have we got? Okay, so a little flourish of sound just then suggests something might have reset. Because I walked back here, which makes sense. Oh, brilliant. No, that's just because I shut them. Ah, classic. Okay. Okay, well this amp has stayed working better and longer than I thought it would. I expected my sound to cut in and out several times. Hasn't happened. So at this point, for anyone using over-ear headphones and running them off their headset, an inline amplifier, it eases the burden off the headset. Taking a line level signal and having no dynamism in the load like headphones have, in terms of different impedance, different resistance through the frequency playback. But you don't get that feeding into a line level amp. And so it takes the capabilities. Takes it's just so much more finesse. But that being said, I'm listening at about half the volume level I would typically listen at. Which means I feel like I'm missing a little bit of stereo. Yeah, so even this, with the imaging finesse, difference of sound accuracy, it just spread over a metre or so. It's just so much more precise. Walking acid. I think I made up. It's a clip. Brilliant. physics kerfuffle there. A bit too enthusiastic with my contact. Yeah, I should throw a grenade down that thing. Where is he? Right. Yeah, don't bring a handgun to a fighting a death machine fight. Alright, so that there is a smallish play session. Yeah. That's, of course, the problem with the more wired you get, the harder it is to disengage. Ah! What is that running through? A microphone, I think, is catching it. Alright. Something is going on. Just... This is why you don't use wired headsets. Oh, look at that. Through the 3D wing system. Right, so a straightforward headband there probably would have been a bit easier to use. Alright, Sony PHA3, that was actually a really good sounding setup. So I mean, I've tried a few of the desktop amps, and running a 5 meter cable to my position, you hear people on the net say, oh yeah, like a Dodgem cars, how they get their power from the roof, that having the cable run down from the roof just takes away all that need to trip over it. But I mean, obviously most people are going to go wireless. They're going to use the Pulse, the official Sony headwear with all the various links. A BTA30, a little FIO dongle box, can actually transmit Bluetooth, can transmit low latency Bluetooth. So I've been happily enjoying some Sennheiser IE80s. They've got aptX low latency receive, and genuine aptX low latency is hovering in that 40 millisecond delay time, which most humans just perceivably won't detect. Sort of south, 30 to 40 milliseconds is just about undetectable. And the hybrid aptX low latency, so what they call adaptive low latency, it sort of had double the latency of regular genuine aptX low latency, but it's still considered one of the lower latencies on the market. Now that all the phones are moving to Bluetooth 5.3, or I think they call it low energy, but that's the low energy profile now works for the music. And apparently a lot of those phones are benchmarking a lot lower latencies, but you usually need a full match system, so you need sending hardware of that latest profile, you need receiving hardware of the matched profile. So I'm a bit of a fan of digging up genuine aptX low latency devices, generally find them cheap down the track. Otherwise, of course, it's hard to beat the Link software and the genuine headwear, but if you do want to play around with better headwear, for that sound immersion, something with a wider sound stage and more precision. I mean, these are some fairly lowly, they're just Audio-Technica ADG 1Xs, have a really good wide microphone on them. Action set of headphones. You know, I've probably used these for a solid 7 years plus. They've been on the market for a while. Pretty confident when I've got them. So, you know, for a long time, these were the go-to headphones for people in the know. Audio-Technica being a proper hi-fi brand, the design of them being fairly, you can argue transparent, they sort of get out of the way and just let you to hear what's actually there, but being an open backs generally have what's known to be that wider, more honest sound field. Not ideal for listening to music beside your partner in bed at night, but yeah, in terms of if you want accurate positional audio, generally you will find with an open back you'll get that at a cheaper price point than with closed. That being said, good closed backs do exist. The aforementioned Sony MDR Z7s, there was a Z7 II where they'd sort of doubled up the magnets in them, made them twice as sensitive. Probably get a Z7 original for a lot lower price point because they're no longer flavour of the moment, in vogue. But fantastic as a closed back headphone goes. They're arguably a semi-open. There's something they do in the low down bass frequencies that just sounds akin to being in real life. If you've ever been clubbing at the wee hours of the morning and you can hear that that music event that's either the next valley across or just the next street around, and you can hear this like low down da-dump in the bass. You can kind of almost feel it. Not a lot of headphones can recreate that, but the Z7, MDR Z7 by Sony, as a closed back, arguably, does that trick really well. I'm trying to think, there's a couple of more modern headphones that are open backs that are achieving that sound. Yeah, some open backs can get you that da-dump, and I mean, that's best of both worlds, arguably. So look, this isn't really a headphone review. I just feel that anyone watching this video probably watch me playing Aliens with no sound themselves. So it's just sort of trying to gauge off myself how accurate I was. You'll notice in that video there was a spot where one got the jump on me. It had actually made it to the ground, and I hadn't necessarily heard it. But I mean, that was me sort of ignoring sound cues that were happening in the game world, and it was more because I was so caught up with how immersive they were. Having now tried quite a few different sets of headwear when playing the game, that there would be the most budget set of headphones with a good amp off the worst DAC in the house, like i.e. the one built into the headset, and I've just fed line level out into a line level amp in the way. I mean, you can get little FIO Q3s and tiny little things that fit in your pocket, and they'll have both the input and the output on one edge of the device, so it actually is practical to put it in your pocket. If anyone saw me wearing this weird device on my back, it was just pure and simply so that I could find a way to put the PHA3 in place, because annoyingly, input on one side, output on the other. Right? And as you can see, that's quite a large device, quite a heavy device. But it would be quite practical to put that on your belt, have a little cable from the headwear down to it, and then up to your headset again. And yeah, in terms of improving the sonics, ooh, I'm very impressed. So food for thought, might be worth putting an inline amp in place from the headwear if you're using open headphones. That might improve the stage size. As I found when I was using the welding torch, the accuracy of tracking a couple of meters of width in front of me and the sounds across that was just so much more accurate, or less congested. Whereas in the past it would feel like it was a gap about that big. In this, it actually felt like it matched the imagery that I was looking at. That a sound, if it was meant to be over there, was actually well positioned over there, and the finesse as it moved in front of me and dropped in height and felt like it was still that distance from me. You know, it could play out in the sound, in the environment, and with all the echoes and all those little micro cues that some headsets won't pick up. Anything over Bluetooth, doesn't matter how lossless the Bluetooth is, you know, you're generally losing the treble edges, and the little edges and the little echo bits of information are what set up the environment. So wired versus wireless, I have a penchant for wired. That being said, I have heard good wireless. I put to you that the IE80s by Sennheiser, these were flagship wireless headphones at the time when they'd come out. What would I use now? Final Audio have some Bluetooth earbuds that they've custom built their amp, and have built like a Class A amp, I believe, into them, or a really good quality Class AB amp rather than Class D. I'd probably err on their first gen. Their first gen have tips that are a little bit uncomfortable, so they're on clearance at 3/5 off in my local market, which kind of makes them bargain for the peanuts price point on them. That you can do it, but for all of those sorts of things, you'll need to get a FIO adapter inline. Just looking at mine here, right? So I'll just show that there is a FIO BTA30. There's lots of other devices you can use that will take a USB input straight from your PlayStation console. The PlayStation then sees that as the DAC. From this, you can either feed out with auxiliaries into your amp, for example, or a headphone amp. You can feed digitally output, which is one of the ways I like using this, then feeding it into a really good DAC, such that, you know, the precision is still there. But with many of its options, it's got Bluetooth receive, Bluetooth transmit, all adjustable by a setting on the front. The better version is the BTA30 Pro. That's Bravo Tango Alpha BTA30, and then the Pro. The Pro just saves you a lot of trouble. It's got more dedicated switches. It'll show you if you're in a low latency mode of aptX rather than a high def version of aptX or LDAC or whatever. And the chips in are a little bit different. So it can actually receive on the USB and still output from the Bluetooth. For me, I have to, I use a Cambridge DAC, and then I feed, it can take USB from the PlayStation. You need UAC 1 mode USB for the PlayStation consoles to feed directly to it. If it's UAC 2 mode, which is a USB mode that came out about 2012, anything that's UAC 2, consoles won't talk to. But if it's UAC 1, an ancient version of USB output audio, the consoles will speak with it. So some manufacturers have various firmwares that if you install a different firmware, you'll actually set your device to be UAC 1 mode rather than UAC 2. So, you know, that works for me. I use an ancient Cambridge Audio DAC Magic. Paid bugger all for it many years ago. But I use it as a splitter. So the USB goes into that. I can then feed out digital. And I'll feed one digital cable out to my DAC. And I'll feed one digital cable to this. And that's how I'll typically do a video. So I'll be using Bluetooth headwear whilst the sound is coming through my speakers. And so, I guess gamers, people at home watching these videos don't hear my sounds. If there is a slight latency, it's not too bad. Well, you don't pick up on it, and yeah, and so I get to record the sound through the speakers. Now that being said, the other day I tried using, just for the sake of an argument, a music player, and used the Bluetooth receive on this. So I had the FIO transmitting, and in SubBandCodec or SBC mode Bluetooth, I actually found the latency was about as low as I was going to get, because none of my devices have low latency aptX. And but there are devices like this is a FIO M11 Plus. I think the M17 had low latency Bluetooth receive, and it's a big headphone amp. Like as portable units go, it's kind of like having a dedicated desktop headphone amp. So yeah, look, there's many paths to the summit. If you want to use Bluetooth, I appreciate why that would be. Just those less cables you saw me as I was trying to get it all off, the cable jangle. So far, without doubt, for me, the best method has been the Sennheiser IE80 BTs. These went on clearance probably 3-4 years ago, 80% off or something ridiculous. You could get them for really cheap. And they were direct from Sennheiser for that price globally for like a year. And then in your dedicated audio shops, you might have found that product was still available for 6 months or so. And so I think I bought multiple sets. A few of my friends got various sets there. They've sort of stayed true as one of the better gaming headsets. And it doesn't come down to the fact that it's dynamic drivers or aptX low latency per se, but by being a flagship Sennheiser product in the tuning, they created a sense of space, like the biggest sound field you're going to get from a in-ear, arguably, dynamic driver. And so really what you need, right? It's irrelevant if you're going to use Bluetooth, it's irrelevant if you're going to use a desktop amp or the amp inside of the headset itself. If you've got a flat line sound, right? You don't want exciting sound, right? For head-related transfer fields or HRTFs, that is simulating surround sound using two speakers up against your head. For that math to function, it needs to flow into a flatline audio device, right? So those HRTFs to actually simulate treble and information changing slightly, you need to have headwear that's a little bit predictable for the HRTFs to work in. And predictable, by that I just mean studio, flatline. But when you go into the PlayStation and go into the tuner, and you actually tell it bit by bit, oh, okay, I heard that sound over there, I heard that sound over there, and it'll actually reconfigure, it'll rebuild an HRTF custom for you, and it'll use your ears and your specific hearing. If you've got a deficiency of some frequencies on just one of your ears, one of your sound channels, it'll work around that. And that's why after you make a couple of changes, it'll say, oh, how did you hear that sound pan through the environment? Did it pan down? Did it pan up? What did it do? And over 6 or 7 steps of giving feedback to the PlayStation console, it tunes a custom sound profile just for you. And really, really worth doing. Look, that being said, this is now probably a lot longer than I wanted to run it for. As I say, it was just my warm-up session. So I gained a little bit of ground. I'm happy. Incrementally, I'll get back in there and make some progress. And I might even go back to using that headset if I'm not filming. The joy of being able to use it and not causing a discomfort for anyone, because it was perfect for me. And certainly while I was using it, like perfectly comfortable. And of course, the benefit of big over ears And the reason why I'm now moving to big over ears rather than just my in-ears is that I find that they stabilise with the headband. They stabilise the platform for when you're actually gaming, that I can game for a lot longer, because the little bit of movement up and down that might creep in after 15 minutes of jumping around, right, that's now stabilised so much better. And it just takes the weight off and distributes it a lot more evenly across the head. It just makes it a lot more comfortable, takes the pressure off the front here, and yeah, just fantastic. But look, again, long lead out. Thank you for engaging. I guess a lot of this information is practical. It's irrelevant to the game per se. It's not specific. It's just you've got to have a big open sound field set of headphones. You go into your PlayStation console, you go into your tuner, you set it up for your hearing specifically, and then you've got this epically open sound stage, ideally where sounds can pan up and down and from left to right and from front to back. And that imaging accuracy in a game where you can only look in a finite direction, right, and you need to be able to hear if stuff's coming up from behind you, those audio cues are worth everything. All right, well, top of the day with you. Well wishes with.